Hello, everyone out there. It's November 7th, 2019, and this is the Backdrop Weekly Dev Meeting. We get together every week and talk about the current status of Backdrop and the issues of importance that are worth discussing one by one. So let's see, updates from the PMC. We don't have any big announcements, although I did want to say that we've been experimenting with 1Password as a password manager to make it so that we can more easily distribute access to various systems, including backdropcms.org, the forum, the API website, other things like the sanitized database backups, the mailing list of MailChimp, all those sorts of things. And we're hoping that this will make it easier to collaborate and to distribute effort and coordination across lots of different people. So if you're interested in taking on a particular role in marketing or DevOps access or anything like that, please send us an email, info@backdropcms.org, because we would love to have it so that no one is a single point of failure for any part of the Backdrop ecosystem. Let's see, community-wise, Alan Mells joined the Backdrop Contrib group last week, and I think he got a shout out then for porting Search Index Wipe module, but I wanted to say thank you again, Alan, for your efforts this past week, because you ported the only new module this week, which was Search Index Options. And I saw that you also are working on adopting the Simple News module, which was ported years ago, but you've reported with additional updates. So thank you, Alan, for all of your efforts and your new modules that you've been working on. We really appreciate it. Jen is not present with us today during this meeting because she is at the Nonprofit Developer Summit, which happens every year here in Oakland, California. And I wanted to give a shout out to the hosts of that event, Aspiration Tech. Aspiration Tech runs the Nonprofit Developer Summit every year. And as part of the Nonprofit Developer Summit, they wanted to announce that their website has now been converted over to Backdrop from Drupal 7, aspirationtech.org, which is very exciting. Aspiration acts as a touchstone for a lot of nonprofits here in the California San Francisco Bay Area, but also like globally. So it's very exciting to have their support and have their website on Backdrop, as well as to be so actively promoting Backdrop at their conference that is happening right now. And Jen is out there spreading advocacy for Backdrop as well to all of the nonprofits out there. So thank you guys very much. Let's see, contributed module updates. Yeah, just Search Index Options, as I just mentioned, is the only new module that we've had this past week. Website related tasks, we were kicking things around before we started the broadcast today. I don't think there's any updates across any of our websites to cover this week. So we'll go right into the progress project status report. So 114.1 is the latest version of Backdrop. It's been a couple of weeks since that came out. So the next version in the bug fix list is 114.2. We've got about 7 or 8 things that have been merged in thus far for that next version, and a big milestone list of many items, 53 items, lots of which there's no RTBC ones. I went through yesterday and got all of those merged in that were currently open, but there are a lot of things that need review. Looks like 127 in total, and in the 114.2 list, there are 22 issues. So almost half of the issues that are in the next milestone have pull requests filed that need review. So that's awesome. That means there's a lot of work that's been done, but that's reviewing, unsurprisingly, is our bottleneck in getting a lot of fixes merged in to fix bugs. So that's a great area if anybody has time. Reviewing is a really key area. I know I'll try to spend some time reviewing as well, not just the RTBC list, but the ones that are in the need review queue. I feel like I should give a shout out. Herb has been doing a continuously awesome job reviewing people's stuff. So thank you, Herb Duel, for all of your continued awesome reviewing. Most of the time, things that are in the RTBC list have gotten there because of Herb. So thank you for doing that reviewing. Let's see. In the queue here, an item of note that has been merged into 114.2 is we've removed the background color behind the site name in the basis theme. So that's it's literally the first thing you see on any backdrop website. That has been merged into 114.2. So that will be a design change that may affect a lot of backdrop sites out there when they update to the new version. That issue is 4093 if you'd like to provide any additional feedback there. But as it's already been merged, yeah, if we want to revisit that, we can. But that one's pretty much good and done. Yeah.
Was it totally removed, or was it changed to be the same as the main bar color?
So what happened there is that people agreed that they liked the appearance of the background color behind the site title on mobile, but not on desktop. And so the option is retained, but its label is changed to express that it's mobile only now. And the background color has been removed from the desktop. So it's not matching the background color. It's actually gone. It's now it's transparent on desktop, and it only applies to mobile.
Okay.
Fortunately, if anybody has made their own skin file or a subtheme of Basis, like it will not be affected. Or actually, that's not true for a subtheme. But if you've specified your own skin file, the skin file is where the changes are. So it won't affect anybody that's made their own skin, at least. It will affect anybody that's used color module, though. Let's see, views crossports is an issue that we've got pulled out here as being of importance. It's issue 3685, this big meta issue of all views crossports. I don't think that there are any updates on this issue.
So we merged, if not all, most of the last batch of crossports. It's just that, as you mentioned, the recent queue for the next bug milestone is just really big and has interesting issues to work on. So I never worked on the next batch to even just do the crossports. But this is an ongoing issue. Like there's a target and there's quite a bit of work to be done. So yeah, eventually we'll get to it.
Yeah. So issue 3685 has that big meta list of all of the things that we need to port from views. They're conveniently all broken out into what needs to be done, but pull requests need to be filed for each of them. So
yeah, Jen has also added the RTBC label in the backdrop, like the actual, not the issues repo, but the backdrop thing, so that we can individually RTBC PRs. See how we had the single issues, then we had a huge list of PRs on the same issue, and we were contemplating whether we're going to be shifting it from RTBC for a portion of it and then back to needed work. So now Jen has added the RTBC label on the actual PRs so that we can use those. So for these specific, issues, the meta issues, the sub-meta issues of this huge meta issue, we can RTBC specific pull requests and get them out of the way.
Okay, great. We'll move on to the next thing, which is flexible templates. Flexible templates, we added these in 114, and there's a number of follow-up issues. The big meta is at 4046. And we discussed one of those today earlier during the design meeting about some terminology changes. But other than that, there's a bunch of potential ways that we could improve flexible templates. And I don't have any updates on any of these, but 4046 is a place to look for improving this new feature that we have in 114.
Yep.
Okay, we'll move on to 115, which is the next minor version. It'll be coming out January 15th, 2020. The first feature that we have here to be added is adding an image library to image fields, issue 3297. Lauren is the advocate for this. He's unable to make this meeting, but he posted comments in the agenda. Thank you, Lauren, for doing that. The status of it is that it's currently a work in progress. Graham72 is doing the implementation. He's working on alt and title text fields and figuring out how those should be integrated. And that there's some differences of opinion currently going on in that issue as to whether it should be a modal versus being inline on the page, and which is better user experience. So issue 3297 is the issue number there. There's a lot of activity happening in there in the code. The pull request actually functions, is my understanding. I haven't taken a look at it myself, but it's great that it's actually, you know, there's work behind it that actually makes some movement. I'm not sure if we want to discuss the dialogue thing like during this meeting. I think it might be best to post feedback into that issue 3297 if you have an opinion about whether or not a dialogue is appropriate versus doing it inline on the page. Let's see, next up is auto menu settings in core, issue 1610. BW Panda is the advocate for this. He also is not able to make this meeting, but I've been seeing that there's a lot of activity on this issue as well. That, let's see, I'm not sure who filed this pull request. Did BW Panda actually make the, he did, yeah. He made the pull request and he's working on reviewing it and iterating on it. Oh, it looks like Jen made the pull request.
Jen made an alternative pull request. So yeah, haven't gotten the chance to follow up on this issue, but it seems that the latest iteration is that Jen has removed the ability to automatically. So what is it? It restores the previous functionality by removing menu link title default setting entirely. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think, yeah, we all could maybe take some time to look at that one.
Yeah. So there's been some activity. Yeah.
Let's see. We've got a couple of items here that haven't seen any progress. We want to add a recent news block to the dashboard that feeds in from a JSON feed from backdropcms.org. It's issue 3566. St. Paul Tim is the advocate, but there hasn't been any progress on this recently. Jen has been working as the advocate for issue 4031, making it so that the manage file display page that allows you to configure how file entities are displayed is on a separate page instead of being combined under the normal display options for like the way that other types of entities work. So she's working on that in issue 4031. There haven't been any updates in this past week. Gregory, you're the next advocate for issue 1575. Yep. Provide a way to re-enable disabled text formats. Yep. Any updates?
Yeah, no updates. Basically, as I said in the previous meeting, we have a path forward. We came really close to including that in 114, but it was breaking some stuff. Doppelmud came up with an idea that is less intrusive and it won't be affecting that stuff that we broke. So it's just a matter of adapting the pull request to just do that instead. Yeah.
Okay. So there's a way forward on that.
Yep.
Great. I'm the next issue, the advocate for issue 1992, part of our automatic updates initiative, digital signatures on packages. Last week I mentioned that I've taken the CodeSign project and separated it out into its own contrib module temporarily. And I've been working on setting it up to deploy on backdropcms.org as a contrib module initially. And then once we have the project feeds generated with signatures inside of them, then work on integrating it into core. The current status on that is it's probably best to take a look at the issue queue inside of CodeSign itself, the new Backdrop Contrib project. I've been posting issues as I find them, areas in which we could improve. The biggest area that needs improvement right now is documentation on how to use the thing, because it's proven to be rather challenging to set up and configure, but not because of the module, just because of the actual complexity of the task at hand. And in particular, SSL, like generating certificates with OpenSSL, it's just a complicated process. I'd like to get a hold of John to see, like he clearly has some ambition around the way that this module functions, but it's also kind of like, it might be more complicated than really necessary. His code is amazing though. Like he made it so that someone would create a certificate authority, and a certificate authority normally is like, like Komodo or Namecheap or some other big provider, VeriSign, that owns the main root certificate that then distributes the certificates to everybody else. Like you have to purchase from them, and then browsers include the corresponding certificate in their browsers. The idea that he has is that we would actually create a certificate authority of our own making, and then create certificates from the certificate authority, which would be really flexible, allowing us to create multiple certificates and then like distribute them to other people and revoke them and all kinds of fancy things. But it's exactly that. It's kind of just like fancy, like in a way that we might not really need. So I'm still working through that and documenting it, and I'll try to figure out like if it could be simplified and take that back to John.
Is there any hope of like using Let's Encrypt as the provider or no?
So that there is also that possibility that we could literally use an actual existing certificate authority to generate certificates, like using Let's Encrypt. But the thing is that we don't need to actually use any certificate authority at all. Like we can make our own, and that makes it so that the certificates would never expire or never need to be renewed, or like we would have complete control over it. Because it's interesting that, like, unlike a web browser, where the web browser includes in it the kinds of root certificates that it will acknowledge, and you see that every now and then, that Firefox or Mozilla and Google will like revoke a certificate of something that's been compromised, and then that certificate is no longer accepted by web browser or by the browsers when they visit, when people visit those pages. We control both sides of the equation here. That we control the source of the information, the XML feeds, and we control the application, what is you would consider to be the web browser in the normal use case. We control the product, which is Backdrop itself. And so it's interesting that basically we can become our own certificate provider. Like we can generate our own certificates and validate the certificates on the other end, because we are both the provider and the consumer. So, but what I was getting with all of this is that we could also just not have the certificate authority and instead create a self-signed certificate and have one private key and one public key and just be done with it, just with that combination. With the certificate authority, it basically allows you to create an unlimited number of certificates that are all validated against the root certificate. So it's kind of like instead of it being a one-to-one, like a private key, public key system, it's like the private key can generate an unlimited number of public keys. So yeah, it's a powerful setup, but one that is complicated. Let's see, but it's still really interesting, and I'm glad that I've gotten at least a proof of concept set up. And yeah, I can now start iterating on the module itself. So next up, entity cache in core, issue number 74. Joseph is here, but I don't think there's any updates on this, Joseph. But is there anything you'd like to say about entity cache in core?
Not really.
Okay, that's fine. So no updates there. I think that's it for 115. I don't think it's been pulled in yet. And I can't even remember what issue it was. There's another issue that is in the milestone candidate. All right, I'm going to find it. Milestone candidate minor. Oh, here it is. Yeah, I found this to be very interesting. Issue 3972. And I'll add this to the agenda because I think that okay, well, anyway, I'll summarize it. I don't know how to pronounce this name. Indigo Zella, it looks like, is working on this issue that started as a bug. The issue title is Translated AM/PM strings prevent the node authored on and published on from validating. So if you have your site in a different language and then you enter in a translated AM or PM into your scheduled time, it doesn't pass validation because only literally the strings AM and PM are acceptable, but that's not the way that those acronyms function in all languages. So the way that this is transformed, though, is that the suggestion is that we start switching from using the pop-up calendar that uses jQuery UI as kind of a retrofit onto the onto text fields, and instead start using HTML5 date elements. And this is interesting that browser support for providing a pop-up calendar is very wide now. It works on all browsers except for desktop Safari. And so the suggestion is that like we just stop using jQuery UI, which is kind of shoehorned on top of a normal text field, and instead switch to HTML5 input type equals date and input type equals time. And then that provides native browser pop-ups for selecting a date now. So it's a really interesting implementation. And right now, they've only been concerned about the publish date and the scheduled date on the node form. And as a side effect of that, introducing HTML5 elements for those different input types. But I would like to see that expanded out to include date fields that you add through date module. So, which I don't think that it would be a terrible, difficult add. But if I derail another issue by asking it to cover something that they hadn't expected, then we can roll back the, roll back the ambition there and just focus on this and then iterate on date fields later.
Yeah, I'd definitely say open up a new issue for getting date field up to speed with this.
So Safari's worldwide sort of like usage at the moment is like 8 to 9%. What are we going to do for that? Are we going to fall back to the current situation or just remove it completely?
So first of all, that number 8%, I think that's mobile Safari.
No, that's I narrowed it down to desktop.
Oh, that's much higher than I would have expected.
Yeah,
I thought it was less than 5%.
So if I do mobile only, it includes tablet and console.
Yeah. So that's an open question, actually, is that the fallback behavior would be that it would become a text field in which we could provide a placeholder text to specify the format, or possibly even specify the format as a description underneath it. And so that would make it so that you would type in the date, but there would be no pop-up. Or potentially there had been some discussion about using jQuery UI as a shim, and so it would fall back to jQuery UI if it wasn't present. But I think that there's some reservation around doing that, just because it makes it difficult.
Safari, by the way, on mobile is like more than like 21 to 22%.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but we don't have a problem there. We just have it on desktop, right?
So IndigoZella has not actually claimed this as being an advocate, although I think that they're planning on doing the work, and it's a really interesting issue. So that we might start talking about that on a more regular basis. I am honestly shocked that we don't have support for HTML5 inputs for date elements in the first place at all. Like there's not even a form API element for date inputs yet. And that seems like a clear shortcoming in our form API that we should definitely have those kinds of inputs. So this is really cool. If nothing else, that it grants us that capability. And as a side effect, it solves the AM/PM problem because the native browser inputs are more like they're locale sensitive just by their nature. However, I think that the validation might just be a little bit looser, and that might be why it's working. I'm not totally sure if it's just like doing less and that's why it works.
Okay. But still sounds like a good idea to just use something that has native support. And
yep. Yeah, I like it, especially date fields on mobile, date and time fields on mobile have much better user interfaces than a pop-up calendar, because like they do like full screen takeovers to select the time or full screen takeovers to select the date. And it's a much better user interface than we can really do on a web page. That's probably not true. We probably could do it on a web page, but you know.
you mean the UI that you swipe and it has the rolling numbers thing?
Yeah. Okay. Or on Android, when you select time, it pops open this clock-like thing that the spinny dial, which is the way that the alarm clock works in Android. So familiar and functional. Okay. I don't have anything else, though. Do you guys have anything you guys would like to bring up for 115 or otherwise?
Yeah, previously I didn't have edit permissions for some reason. Now I do. So last week we mentioned about a possible solution for translated strings not having to be translated by using IDs in T functions or IDs in PO files. I said that I will file a ticket for that. I didn't get to do it, but yeah, that's an interesting approach. So.
Okay. Well, if there's something else, let's not rehash it again.
Yep.
Sure. Okay. It looks like I also promised my feedback on issue 4181 last week, but I failed to do that. However, it's been marked RTBC, so it looks like Herb has done that 4 hours ago. And Gregory, you looked at it 4 days ago, so thank you guys for taking a look at that, and I will give it a look. Okay. Anything else? No? Okay.
Yep.
Well, thank you guys for joining the meeting today. Thank you out there to all of our viewers as always, and really appreciate the all of the work that everybody does on Backdrop. And we were saying before we started the meeting today that there's been a noticeable increase in velocity, like things have been happening. And it's very exciting when seeing, I say this like, you know, every iteration, like I'm excited to see the increase in progress, like the speed at which we're moving. And just as of recently, it's been noticeable that we've hit like another like notch, you know, we've climbed another rung on the ladder. Like it's a real noticeable increase just this past couple of weeks. So we're very excited that all these things are happening within the Backdrop community, and thanks to everyone that's out there participating and volunteering all of this time.
Yeah, it's hard to keep up now.
It's very hard.
To keep up.
Yeah, which is great. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all, everybody, and we'll see you guys on the internet.
Yep. See you guys.